a pal. Hogan's out on that note. That's it for him. He'll wander around, find a little sunny patch. All right. I guess without further ado, we'll get this thing started. Welcome to the Go Throw Show. This is the first episode, and I am honored to have the man himself, Cale Leiviska, one of the hardest working men in disc golf, on first. Pleasure to be with you, buddy.
Luke, it's my pleasure, man. This is an honor. I know you guys have all been working hard, GK Pro, what you guys are doing.
Lots of hustle going on. Yeah.
Lots of hustle. So when you asked me yesterday to be a part of this, of course, this is a great honor. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's important that we have you on for a few reasons. I think one of them being the preserve, another just being one of the ambassadors of disc golf in general, and being here for a long time, seeing the changes, understanding that. And a lot of people don't know. Do you want to just give a little segment on the preserve real quick? Talk about what that is.
For sure. The preserve is something that has been my dream for at least a decade. I started kind of designing courses about 8, 9, 10 years ago. Always been just, a student of the outdoors. Grew up in the Northwoods my whole life, so kind of eventually getting my own property someday and building like a disc golf landscape that the preserve has been a dream for so long. So we had this opportunity come about. There's a beautiful golf course in Clearwater, Minnesota called Eagle Trace Golf Course.
Yeah. Right
on the Mississippi River, and
just a little bit northwest of Minneapolis.
Yeah, about an hour north of the Twin Cities. This place went up for sale the summer of 2019, and I had my real estate agent kind of looking at properties for a couple of years, kind of trying to find that right place.
Yeah, for you.
Find a place that has a bunch of fresh water to swim and to play through and to float down. And so we saw this property come up for sale, and like the price was pretty moderate for how big of a place it was. So we were like, all right, something's got to be wrong with this place.
Yeah.
But we'll drive up there, check it out.
Yeah.
And we met with this owner, and essentially he'd been, golf course maintenance and running a golf course is very expensive, as you know.
Right.
All the chemicals, the fertilizing, the irrigation.
Dude, just the water alone. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, but so much goes into it. And so if a golf course, is starting to lose money for a few years, which unfortunately so many are in the United States, this guy was kind of losing his love for it. And growing up in Minnesota with Blue Ribbon Pines, kind of being like the pioneer for pay-to-play disc golf, and
totally.
kind of being like setting the scene to show that it can actually work and thrive.
Yeah,
work very well.
Yeah.
I was like, we got to do this, and then honestly, the deal kind of fell cold there for a while because there's a huge, like many thousand feet clubhouse, and we didn't really want to take on all that responsibility. We just wanted the land.
Yeah.
The landowner essentially wanted to combine them both.
Package deal.
Yeah, we were like, well, that's just too much for us to take on right now, so we backed out of it. And then spring of 2020 happens.
Yeah, COVID hits.
Yeah, we're all down at Waco playing. We were staying in a house together down there, getting ready for a long, awesome season of disc golf, and all of a sudden COVID hit.
And wham.
And then, so like I had a lot of plans last year to do a full tour, go to Europe, do all this stuff. And all of a sudden, everything was kind of in question. So
screeching halt. The whole world. It wasn't just the disc golf world, but us for sure as well.
But for us, I remember, we were all kind of sitting at that house the morning after the tournament, just like,
what's the next step?
It was a weird feeling among us. But so I drove down solo. So now I'm, everything in question. I'm driving home by myself.
Yeah.
Just kind of thinking about what I'm going to do, what's the season going to look like, what's the world going to look like. And literally on the drive home, I get a call from the golf course owner when I'm leaving Waco, honestly. And he says, well, we sold the clubhouse. They did not want the land, so let's make something happen here. And I'm just like, my mind's just running every which way. I'm like, this cannot be really happening right now. The timing was just too crazy.
Somebody counterpart like you didn't want the course, wanted the the spot, which also has a pool, right? This clubhouse that we're talking about, it's a legit clubhouse. This was a country club for many years.
And we ended up, leasing some of the space, but I'll get to that in a sec. But so I get home. The next day I drive up, meet with the guy. We're riding around on golf carts up there, golf carts, just kind of talking if we can make this happen. What are we going to do?
And there's still holes in the ground, like there's tee boxes. This is an active course.
This is an active course. Okay. He'd pretty much had enough. He didn't have the energy to kind of continue what he was doing. So, and this guy knew nothing about disc golf when I first met him the summer before, and he really did his due diligence. He drove out to BRP and was like, "Wow, this is." Really? And he happened to go on a weekend when BRP is just a zoo.
I mean, that place is a spectacle. It really is. Ray keeps it in ridiculous shape. Yeah.
I mean, if you go to BRP on the weekend,
hundreds.
You're gonna see the parking lot full every single day. It's remarkable. So he went out there and was like, okay, this, he did research on me.
It's feasible.
Yeah. He's like, well, if there's someone that can pull this off, he thought that I was the one to do it. So we came to an agreement just like that. Literally 2 days after Waco had happened, I had signed the deal.
Whoa.
And it was happening. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm jumping in completely. I was like, all my tournaments are going to get canceled. The ones I was going to run were going to get canceled. Totally. I was like, I at least can have my own place where I can play.
A project.
People can play, we didn't know much about COVID at the time, but I was like, if there's a place for people to be, it's outdoors and enjoying that. So we pulled it off just like that. I mean,
when did you guys start?
Remember, we were in Waco, and I wasn't even talking about this.
No,
like, this was literally not in the works.
And then we talked a few weeks later, and you were like, dude, you got to come up here now. Like, I've got this place. You can help build this course with me. I'm like, what? How? Where? When did this happen? I mean, things were bleak at that time, too, COVID-based. We didn't know when we were getting back, if we were getting back. The world seemed like it had come to a complete halt. And then all of a sudden, you had this amazing place pop up. So when did you start talking about a Pro Tour event being there?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, well, before we talk about the Pro Tour event, so much had to happen before then. First of all, the landscape was already there. We didn't have to do a ton of tree cutting and stuff because it was a golf course.
Right.
There are a lot of woods on the outskirts that we wanted to utilize to create some balance with the course. But essentially, right when COVID hit, a lot of people were all of a sudden out of work too. So all of a sudden, I couldn't have done it, with just me and a few people on hire. Like, we couldn't have done it this fast. But all of a sudden, people started getting wind of it, and I was sharing little teasers of what was going on, and all of a sudden I have 15, 20 volunteers every single day coming out, just
insane,
eager because they have time all of a sudden on their hands.
Man, the Minnesota community.
Oh my gosh, I cannot,
ridiculous.
Well, we were able to do, so essentially we built, what turned out to be, after the full 2020 season, 2 of the top 50 courses in the world, according to UDisc, and we built those in 3 weeks, dude. So it was just, the amount of help, we were literally out there every day with so many people that were contributing, and we pulled it off. And so here we are now in mid-April. But still, all the golf courses and everything in Minnesota is closed down because of COVID.
Yep.
No one really knew what the proper etiquette or way to go about things were. And then the courses were pretty much done, and I was doing all the final stuff. We built this little, we got a shipping container, built it into a pro shop, tried to keep things minimal. I literally ordered up the porta potties to be delivered the next day, which was April 18th. And then the governor of Minnesota gets on the news that night and says that golf courses can be open tomorrow. And we were just already the timing has just been so wild. And then he did that. I literally got on, social media and said, the preserve is opening tomorrow.
Come on out.
And there's some people that were kind of privy to what was going on, but everyone was just in Minnesota. They
just ready for something.
Didn't know. They had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the first day we opened, I'll never forget that. It was the craziest thing I've ever experienced.
Filled up that parking lot right there.
That parking lot,
street,
overflow parking lot. Hundreds of people there that first week. It was unbelievable, man. Yeah. Pulled it off.
Confirmation of everything that you'd been working on.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. All right, so
then we're at mid-April at that point.
Mm-hmm.
still in the competitive disc golf community, we still didn't know what was going on.
No.
You know, like I had my own thing going now, but we weren't playing tournaments or anything.
No schedule. No schedule. Any of that. Yeah.
So the next scheduled Pro Tour events were on the West Coast, which was getting, you know, they had a lot stricter regulations than we had in the Midwest at the time. Yeah. So what was it? San Francisco Pro Tour event, Portland Pro Tour event, both had to get canceled.
Yep.
So Jeff Spring, you know, being just the man that he was, his first year running the Pro Tour, you know, trying to salvage it and make it awesome for us and for the fans, for everybody. He reaches out to myself, he reaches out to Jeremy Rusko and says, can we reschedule these two events at Emporia and the Preserve? And this is, you know, we'd been open for 2 months at the time. And this is happening, and obviously, you know, I felt bad about the West Coast.
Do you know how
being canceled? But
Jeff Spring even knew what was going on up there? I mean,
I knew Jeff Spring knew what was going on because I would call him once every 2 weeks and say
update him,
and I would tell him I was like, you know, and I was saying next year. I'm like, next year, I got the place for you. This venue is perfect. You know, everything's on this property. People, you know, all the players can stay here. I was like, this is it. Space. And so it was because I was in his ear a lot.
All right.
But he called me up and said, you honestly think you can pull this off? Like, you know, don't BS me. This is
like, dude, I'm your boy.
Deal.
I got you.
And I was like, Jeff, I promise you, I will not let you down. Let's make this happen. I had to get it approved with like the city, with the county and stuff, just make sure that was okay. I talked to the right people, got in, and it was on.
It's crazy how that thing came about. In the midst of one of the greatest turmoils that we've, you know, all lived through, this gets pulled through, pushed through, expedited, and all of a sudden we got a Pro Tour on some property in what, like from start to finish, 3 months, 4 months?
3 months, yep.
3 months. It's mind-blowing. All right, so 3 months is all it took. I mean, and that's why I call you Jay-Z. You've laid the blueprint down for everybody else coming behind you. You said, this is how to do it. You want a course, you want to own it, you want to do the private thing, the future of disc golf, in my opinion. You just laid it out. What do you see as the future for the Preserve?
For the Preserve, man. Well, you know, back to, you know, talking about the blueprint, you know, like us all at the top level, you know, we all know what a good course is.
Yeah.
I feel like some of us more than others would be great course designers. Like, you know, we're the kind of the new blood of where the sport is going. And then, you know, having our own property. Like when I was doing this, I remember Sexton was reaching out a lot and just like encouraging me, telling me how this is something he's always wanted to do, how cool this is, you know, like pretty much, you know, just giving me encouragement to keep pushing with it. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, in 10 years there's, you know, at least a handful of top players who own their own property. I mean, you see it happening with Macbeth now.
Yeah.
Building his own course. And
supposedly one of the hardest in Virginia.
Yeah, I would expect nothing less from him.
Totally. Yeah.
But I really wouldn't be surprised if, you know, 5 to 10 years, there's 5 to 10 of us that are, you know, have our own properties, building some championship level courses that are going to be getting a lot of love on the Pro Tour.
Right, and taking up a large portion of the Pro Tour tournaments. It'd be cool to see. Dealing with parks departments, dealing with crowds and people, spectators, not necessarily there for the disc golf. I mean, if I'm thinking about like Vista del Camino or the Memorial, which is being played next weekend, that's at a park where you could kill somebody. A park where I watched Matt Bell hit a kid on a bike one time.
Well, and it's impossible to regulate with what we're starting to see with spectator passes and people, you know, buying their admission. You know, a place like Vista or Fountain, it's impossible to regulate that. Like, what are you going to do? Have, you know, people around every turn?
Yeah.
You know, it's just that's what one of the most beautiful things about the Preserve and the Preserve Championship is that there's one entrance, you know, to the property through a gate. So we were able to sell those spectator passes and then regulate it, have a gate there, checking people in and stuff. So, you know, as we move forward with the Pro Tour and the spectator pass is starting to raise a lot of revenue for the venues, for the Pro Tour, that's going to be important is how can you manage the spectators? That's going to be huge.
Yeah, for sure it is. You've got plenty of space at the Preserve. I think that's important as we're picking courses for the future. We know that this has become a large sport and the spectator side of it's just going to get bigger. So places like that, I'd like to see Persimmon Ridge in the mix at some point. You hadn't been down there yet, but beautiful
I've seen
course.
a lot of photos, yeah.
Steve and Kim Jones, also a ball golf course. It was a 9-holer that they turned into an 18. Plenty of space, spectator space. It's the future.
And speaking of space, there's, like yourself, there's so many disc golfers that have just these amazing touring vehicles, vans, RVs, and the coolest thing for me, honestly, about the Preserve and the Preserve Championship was having all you guys I set aside like a 25-acre area right on the river for all like the touring pros to kind of gather and camp, and that was like the coolest thing for me, just seeing everyone swimming in the river after their rounds and swimming in the ponds, and everyone just being on the same property, not having to leave. That was special, and obviously not a lot of venues can do that, but I think a lot of the players enjoyed it. Yeah,
amazing. It was so awesome, and it coincided with the July 4th fireworks events that I love so much as well. So we were blowing stuff up.
Yeah,
we were floating the Mississippi. We had some fire throwers out there. I mean, you figured all that stuff out, but amazing time, and what a special spot you set aside for the pros. Kevin Jones able to do his first show, play a little music for us from some solar power.
Yeah, that was amazing. And and again, we had about a month to prepare for the Preserve Championship last year, so now that we have a full year ahead of us, I really, I'm going to go all out on the camping area. I'm going to be able to spend, a lot more resources on building the Black Bear to be, the true championship course that I want it to be.
Yeah.
There's a handful of tweaks that we're doing out there that are going to be pretty special out there too.
Yeah.
So
can you let us into any of that? How many holes are changing?
Well, so this winter we leased another 50 acres. So we already had 110. So we leased another 50 acres of all forest. So if you remember hole 4 on the Black Bear course, which had a big forest to the right of it along the river, we got all that land. So
upriver from where your course is now.
And then also old hole 5 on the Black Bear course, that whole forest to the right of that, we leased that whole spot too. So we're actually building a third course there right now, actually. So as soon as I get back from Waco, I got 2 weeks to get that thing open, but we're gonna have a couple holes going through the woods for the Black Bear course, and then we got a new par 5 that my boy Jake and I dreamed up. That's gonna be
nasty.
I think one of the most cool, special, talked about holes in disc golf, because I don't want to say too much, but essentially you're throwing from the shore of the pond, and you have to choose either the left side or the right side of the pond to go over. So there's 2 distinct fairways. The player's going to have the option to choose, which I've never seen in disc golf. So it's going to be, depending on, an individual player's strength and strategy, they're going to be choosing which side to go over. It's going to be pretty cool.
Possibly differing conditions, making a decision there for them too.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
We're doing it this year. I think it's the last weekend in July this year. So,
dude,
Jeff Spring obviously, showed us faith last year, and we came through, and now we got a full year to make good on some improvements and do what we can to make it. I want to make it the best one this year.
Dude, Jay-Z, everybody. There you go. Blueprint.
And I want to win it too. That's most important.
Yeah. Well, if you make it a bomber track, you got to keep up with Eagle.
Oh my gosh.
Speaking of bomber, all right, so I'm watching some of this footage that Steve Dodge has been releasing recently, and a lot of it includes you. A lot of it's from like 05 to 08 area, and you were on tour with Nico and Felberg at that time. Was that 07?
No, actually, when Nico, Felberg, and Schustrick and I went on tour, that wasn't until 2012.
Okay.
When we did the nonstop disc golf tour, but yeah, that's when I started like really hitting the competitive scene, was about 06, 07. Okay. So it's been cool to see Steve bust out those, help me relive some of those old memories from the old Maple Hill days, back when it was called the Marshall Street Championship.
Yeah. I'm watching them, and they're talking about Cale, like, oh, Cale throws the furthest. Cale's the bomber. Like, if you can keep up with Cale, you're bombing. Like, dang, Cale.
Yeah,
and you were talking about why it was too.
Well, yeah, I was 23 years old, first of all, so I was, just
a young man
playing sports every single day of my life. So I was in good shape, and back then I was sponsored by Discraft, and the Predator was, it's a very overstable, like Firebird FX2 type disc.
Yeah.
So that was the fastest disc at the time. So everything, I just had to just wrench over on it and force it over. So, back then I guess I probably was one of the furthest throwers.
Dude, the smasher. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I must have been like 23 when that video came out.
Dude, absolutely draining putts. Nearly acing the 18th hole after playing like a sick game of golf the entire day.
That's right.
Yeah, wild times. All right, well, let's talk about some other sports. I know that you're a huge fan of a couple different people, even have some ink of these people. One of them being Kobe Bryant, another one being LeBron James. I mean, you're passionate about these dudes. You follow them. You know.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, baseball was always my favorite sport. My uncle is a Hall of Fame baseball player, so I was.
Explain that. Hall of Fame baseball player genes Cale has.
Well, yeah, my uncle's Paul Molitor. So when I was a kid, he was playing for the Milwaukee Brewers, which was about a 5-hour drive from us. So, we'd be driving to Milwaukee pretty much every weekend to go watch him play. And then he won a World Series in Toronto, and then he actually finished his career in Minnesota for his last 4 years. So I was able to,
be right there for
just
that.
be right there. So I, grew up with so many special memories of watching baseball. I got to be at the Hall of Fame when he was inducted in 2004, and so that was always my first love. And then now, NBA is kind of my biggest passion as far as viewing now.
Yeah. You're a great player as well.
Yeah, I like to hoop, of course.
Yeah, we played 21 probably 10 times in Waco, and I think you won every single one of them. Once you got to the free throw line, we weren't playing 3 and stop, so Cale just stood there and drained.
Sweat.
Just like that circle 1 percentage that you led the Pro Tour in last year.
Yeah, that's
There's something to be said for that.
Like a free throw.
Are you good at like beer pong and other like bago, standstill?
Oh my gosh, I'm competitive at everything, but yeah, I don't think I've ever lost a game of bags. That's for sure. It's just like my putting style, it's straight up and down. So, playing with a bunch of people drinking beers is pretty easy to get them most of the time. But
what is it about like say LeBron that draws you to him? Like which characteristics?
Well, LeBron is. I'm 37 years old now, so LeBron and I are pretty much the same age. So I remember, I remember the hype of him in high school, and I was like right there with him, and I was following him like from the beginning, and I think that's why I have such a love and appreciation for him. And then just like his greatness, like how he's lived up to the hype and far surpassed it, and what he does for the community, how he's building schools, how he's such a good role model, and then how he's still so dominant. In year 18 is the most inspiring thing. He's not slowing down. I think he's still the best player in the NBA, and so I've really enjoyed following his journey. So hopefully we get to see him for at least another 5 years until his son gets in the NBA. But you brought up Kobe, and I was never a Kobe fan. Like when he played in the NBA, I actually I did not like him at all. Like I respected him very much, obviously, but
that
I was
cockiness.
I never liked the Lakers back then. I loved LeBron, so Kobe was the guy that I always rooted against, even though I obviously had a lot of respect for him. But then I actually my second date ever with my future wife was Kobe's last game in Minnesota, and she had never been to a basketball game. And I'm like, well, Kobe's coming. I got to go to this game. So we went. So I got to see him play his final game in Minnesota, and that season I kind of like, stopped hating on him and started like appreciate what he was doing. And but then like when he passed, I don't know. It's like for a guy that I rooted against his whole career, when he passed, it was like, I don't know, I was shook just so hard by it, and I didn't really understand why. And it was just he just had such a he's a special man, and so
Well, he transcended sports, at the end of the day. He was more than just a great athlete.
Yeah, and he had flaws and stuff like we all do, but he was just a savage and cared so much and had so much passion. And I had a tattoo scheduled for like the day after he passed, just randomly. So I ended up getting his 8 and 24 on the back of my arm just because I was so touched at the time. And,
That's awesome. Switching subjects a little bit.
Yeah.
But also talking about entertainment to a degree. You are a huge Game of Thrones fan. So much so that you name your discs after Game of Thrones people or things or swords or whatever else. Like a lot of Game of Thrones fans out there. Why don't you talk to them for a second?
Yeah, I'm kind of a nerd, honestly. I got a couple buddies that every episode that come on, we'd all get together and watch it. And I didn't get into it until like the first few seasons, and then once I started watching it, I had to start reading the books and try to get ahead and see what was going on. But yeah, I've always, even years ago, I would always name my discs, at least my special ones, like something. And then once that started, I just kind of went with it and started naming them either characters or weapons or dragons.
I've got one that you gave me, Heartsbane. It's an OGH3.
That's Valyrian steel right there. That's Heartsbane.
Right. Yeah, it's a fantastic disc. It's got that tiger print on the top of it.
Yeah,
it's a one of one.
You still throwing that?
I do. Yeah, it's got a spot.
Yeah, that was always too overstable for me. So
when you hit it with the forehand, it just flips up a little bit and skips more than the A3. So I'm down with that one. All right, jump on this. Let's talk about Prodigy Disc Golf. I mean, you've been with them since the beginning, and you just signed an extension.
Yeah, man. I mean,
there's a lot of people. I mean, like, start at the beginning if you would.
Yeah, I will. I'd love to. So when I started playing, the people that I looked to in Minnesota were Timmy Gill. He was, just a huge ambassador for Minnesota. He was the amateur world champion, and he actually won the 2003 or 2004 Memorial. Second year became a national tour, but so he was who I had looked up to. He threw all Discraft. So my first, it was always my dream to get sponsored by Discraft right away. And after some good finishes early on, I quickly did.
And how old were you when that happened?
That was 2005, so I was I was about 22, 23.
Okay.
Yeah, just fresh out of, or still in college. But so yeah, I was sponsored by Discraft for 8 years, and that brought us to 2012, and I was like, traveling full time with the nonstop tour with Dave and Nico and Will. Yeah. And we could see the sport just blossoming, and we were all kind of getting the same thing, getting entry fees paid, being on a bonus structure and stuff. Mm-hmm. But felt like we were doing a bunch for our sponsors, but it just wasn't really being reciprocated. And so there was a group of, there's so many of us that had the dream. We got to do more for the players. Maybe we should start up our own company, start making our own discs, start paying these players salaries, kind of impact the game from a different way. At that time, it was just Discraft and Innova were really the only manufacturers, so there wasn't, a lot of these other companies that there are now. So there was a group of, there was so many of us that, kind of shared this dream. And so middle of 2012, plans started really developing for Prodigy. We had, it's not like we were like going behind our sponsors' backs, but at the same time, we were just trying to do what was best for us, what we thought was best for the game. So, we finished out the year, and that ended up being like, probably my best year ever on tour because I committed and I was playing full time. I won a couple NTs. Yeah. Won the Texas State Championships that year back down in Houston.
It was like your first tournament in Texas, or one of your first tournaments? You came down there for the swing and just swept it?
Yeah, that was like a handful of years prior. Okay. But for some reason I always do pretty well in Texas. But anyway, that was just an awesome year. So end of the year kind of comes around, and all right, this is actually happening. Prodigy Disc is happening. Mm-hmm. Now all these players that were going to be involved, where does everyone stand? Are we really going to go through with this? And I had been with Discraft for 8 years, so I consider myself a loyal person, and they did a lot for me over the years. So I wanted to reach out to them and give them the opportunity to I'm telling them, like, this is what I'm doing. Now's the time to kind of like pony up. If I want to be in disc golf my whole life. Like I have a lot of big things that I want to do, and they, for whatever reasons, we parted ways, and Prodigy Disc happened, and I remember that was just such a big splash in the disc golf world. All of a sudden, like
salaries,
10 to 12 of the best men and women are all of a sudden, kind of essentially started up our own company. You know, we only had a couple discs right away, but we were all paying salaries, and that was what was important to us. You know, the player we this is what we were kind of dedicating our lives to. You know, we gotta be paid, otherwise, you know, what are you gonna do out here?
You got some equity out of this deal too. You had some ownership. Yep. You felt like when you grew it, you know, it was helping you grow as well.
Yeah, and so we did get equity with it, and we also had the option to buy in for more shares as well, which I was like, you know, I want to be in this for life, so I did.
Yeah.
So I bought it, you know, took my life savings and bought into the company, and yeah, it was just such a splash, and you know, it's been over 8 years now, and just to think about all that, you know, we've gone through as a company, all the changes, all the people that have left, all the people that have came.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a remarkable story, but what it's done for disc golf overall, and for the sponsorship landscape for all these companies. I mean, it trickled down to all these other companies, and essentially everyone had to make a change, because this is obviously where the future is headed. These, you know, are some pretty amazing athletes out here that
are understanding their worth and are willing to make a change based on it. How many of the original Prodigy 10 to 12 still are on Prodigy? Is that
I would say about half.
You, Kat, Will.
Me, Kat, Will. We got Seppo.
Yeah.
Ragna, you know, we were all there.
Crazy.
And then obviously, you know, Cam Colglazer, he was one of the originals.
Matty O soon after.
And then, you know, now, you know, the team that we built with
Kevin Jones,
with you and
Chris
Kevin
Dickerson.
and getting Thomas and Austin this year, and I mean, you know, it's been an amazing ride. I mean, we've gone through, you know, some ownership changes, some, you know, all these different changes, and it's just been such an amazing ride. And now there's a handful of disc golf manufacturers that actually have some market share, and to be like there with Prodigy from the beginning is pretty special, integral time in disc golf history for sure.
Yeah, you watched it grow from the beginning. And so then signing a contract this year, was that something you thought about, or was that a no-brainer for you?
No, man, you know. Yeah, so I was in my 2-year contract got over after the 2020 season, and you know, I didn't get to play as much as I wanted, but I, you know, still, you know, playing consistent good disc golf like I have for a long time. And then with all the work I've been doing with my course design stuff, my course building, with what we did at the Preserve and stuff, you know, my new contract was up. You know, I'm 37 years old, and I'm thinking, you know, I gotta, you know, I feel like I'm, you know, have some pretty good worth and some things that I'm bringing to build Prodigy, build my own brand, build disc golf essentially. And so I've been, you know, my old touring buddy Paul Ulibarri, who's the team Discraft captain.
Yeah.
Like somewhere, I think it was at the Preserve Championship actually. He was like, you know, I know your contract is up. You know, at the end of this year, we should at least chat. You know,
right.
See where we're at. So I was like, you know, just doing my due diligence before I signed a new contract, and talked to Paul Ulibarri and Bob Julio over at Discraft, and they put a really amazing offer together, honestly, and so all of a sudden, you know, and I'm with you in Colorado at this time. We're out snowboarding, and I'm, you know, trying to just like, you know, relax and enjoy the mountains, and now all of a sudden I have like a pretty important life decision to make, and so I was, you know, bouncing ideas off you and some of my friends and family and stuff, and I'm you know, forever grateful for the offer that Discraft gave me and how great they were through the whole process. But essentially, you know, it was significantly more than I was getting from Prodigy, and I went back to Prodigy and said, you know, you know, the moves that Discraft is making, you know, obviously with what's happening with Macbeth and with all these players, I mean, you know, they're seeing the worth. The companies are growing. The disc golf is growing. Yeah. So that, you know, the salaries need to keep growing to kind of reflect that and
represent the market share that's happening.
Yeah, and so, and luckily Prodigy was very receptive to that, and I, you know, I told them that I want to, you know, be involved, and I want the players, not just myself, but all the other players on the top team to be well taken care of and well compensated as well, because, you know, having all this turnover on the top team is not good for the brand, I don't think. You know, I want to get players here, you know, for life.
Pretty common,
essentially. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
at this point in disc golf to see turnover at the end of the year.
Exactly. So I wanna dedicate more resources to the top players, make it, so it's 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 a place that people want to come, people want to stay.
Yeah.
I want Prodigy to be known as a company that takes care of their top players and stuff, because there's some out there that I don't think are doing as good of a job. But anyway,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a high compliment to get an offer like that from Discraft, to understand that, this isn't just what you're worth, what you're being paid now. Like, disc golf's growing, and you're growing, and what you're doing for the game is growing, and it's so much more than just your play. You're obviously a phenomenal golfer. We all know that. You've been a phenomenal golfer for a long time. One of the best mid-range putter throwers to ever throw in this game, and leading the tour in Circle 1 percentage last year. But it's so much more than that. Your course design, and just what you do for the game. Cool to see Discraft just show up,
Yeah, they did.
Proper.
And honestly, with the history that I had with them, for being with them with 8 years,
Yeah.
That would have been the only move that I would even have thought about. And so, yeah, I'm so thankful for those guys for believing in me, and I'm very thankful for Prodigy for believing in me as well. And, and now, so I was able to sign a 3-year extension with Prodigy Disc, and was able to get, everything and more that I had wanted. And I also, pushed for a lot of my teammates as well, to make sure that everyone's taken care of, and that we're all growing together and in this together, because we have such good momentum right now with Prodigy Disc, with disc golf. I don't want anything to change. I want us to just keep moving forward and snowballing, and we're in a good position to do that.
Sounds good to me, man. Your advocacy, I will always take on that front. All right, let's jump subjects a little bit. I hear that you played all sorts of sports, including racquetball, possibly even a racquetball champion.
Dang, Victoria's digging deep. Yeah, my dad, actually, he played competitive racquetball as a kid, so I kind of grew up at the racquetball courts.
Okay. That's an interesting game.
Yeah, super interesting. And all racket sports. We had a tennis court up in my cabin, too, so I love tennis as well. Huge Roger Federer fan, but...
the Fed, the one-hand backhand.
Oh, just the man.
If you're Dr. Smooth of disc golf, he's Dr. Smooth of tennis.
Well, dude, I don't know if I can be compared to Raj.
To the Fed.
But anyway, so my freshman year at Iowa State University, I went there for 1 year.
The Cyclones.
Yeah, the Cyclones.
And Ames.
And I was like, I just love all sports, so I'm like, yeah, I'll take a racquetball class. This is great. And I'd already been playing for years.
Ended up torching people.
And I entered like the Iowa State racquetball tournament, and I ended up winning it. I remember like in the finals, I actually played a female in the finals, and it was like and she was unbelievable.
Whoa.
I like barely beat her, but yeah, I did win the
That's insane.
Iowa State tournament.
Yeah, that game is so much about angles. It's really, if you know how to hit it low off, just roll them out or whatever. My pops is good. He used to torch me growing up. So.
It's such a fun game.
Yeah.
Just being in that rectangle with another player and being able to hit it off any wall.
With the goggles, just whack.
Yeah.
Whack, tack, 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 whack, tack, tack. That's fun stuff.
I love racquetball. I love every sport, honestly. I'll play anything.
All right, let's talk about a ridiculous number. 282. 282 straight cashes for my boy. I mean, that goes back years. That's insane.
Wood here.
Yeah, that's something that, I don't know, that's Cal Ripken. That's like something that'll never be broken. That's Iron Man stats right there.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's something that's even hard for me to really fathom. I mean, to even think that I've played that many events now and to have cashed in that many in a row. I mean,
with a touring pro averaging between 20 and 30 events, we're talking about 10 years of cashing, 10 years plus.
Yeah, I remember the last tournament I missed cash too. It was 2008, so we're talking
12 years, 13 years.
Many years now, over a decade. Yeah, wow. But I still remember that event because I was just kind of like learning how to push putt. Because Feldberg, I remember I was like a spin putter back then, and I'd have some off tournaments and be shanking, and Feldberg was just kept on telling me that you want to be a world champion, you got to switch to this push putt, you at least got to have it. And I remember for this tournament, it was down in Emporia, Kansas it was like the Monkey Island Open PT or something. And I was like, all right, I'm going to only push putt at the tournament. And I remember I was just so awful, just airballing and rolling down hills. And Yeah, that was my last missed cash. And to think, how many tournaments I've played since then.
To not even have a bad weekend between then
Well,
and now.
I've definitely had a couple, relatively poor weekends, but as it continues to build now, it's like the pressure is definitely there. Like, if I ever have a bad opening round or something, especially at like a smaller, like 2-round tournament or something, it's definitely in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Like, all right, don't let this be the one. But
speaking of opening tournaments up, what did you do on the first hole of Las Vegas Challenge, the first hole of your 2021 tour?
Yeah, as we talk right now, the Las Vegas Challenge just got over yesterday.
Right.
So Thursday, my boy Jake and I drove down here, and I have not been playing any disc golf this winter. I mean, we've been snowboarding a bunch. Like, I snowboarded 3 times as much as I played disc golf. But it's not by choice. Like, the last few weeks before I left, it was just so cold in Minnesota. It didn't get above 0 for weeks.
Yeah.
So I came down here just out of practice. Didn't really feel like that great about my game, honestly, in the practice rounds and stuff. I was getting sore. My hips and back were getting sore and stuff. And I remember just having so much nerves on the first tee. I walk up, and remember that day it was just ripping headwind on hole 1. And I'm just like, honestly, I'm thinking about not going OB short right, like, clear, let's start okay if I start with the par. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start this at the basket. If I finish 30, 40 left, that's fine. And I threw out my A3 just flat into this ripping headwind, and I was like, dang, this looks money. Just money, and then dead center chains. And I honestly, man, just thinking about it now, I definitely blacked out for a second. I was just screaming, like the practice area is about 100 yards from us, and everyone's looking over because I'm just going.
The people that were there claimed that you were yelling, "Why aren't you filming us?
Oh,
you need to film this card."
Yeah, we had
where's Joe Mez at?
We had 4 players on our card that were 10, 20 or higher, and that's why I was like, oh, I got a feature card, but there was no cameras, no nothing.
Yeah, I'm 1 for 1. What do you guys want?
For real. I was so hyped. And thinking about that, man, the first hole, the first throw of 2021, it just reminds me of how special this game is sometimes. That kind of perfection, even if it's just for a second, can happen, man. That's magic.
It is. It is. Well said. All right. We forgot to talk about that bald eagle story when we were discussing the preserve. I mean, you had a video of it as well. This is
okay. So yeah,
once in a lifetime.
Back to the preserve. The reason we called it the preserve is because every time we'd go out there, we'd be seeing bald eagles, we'd be seeing fox and coyote, deer, turkey, monster fish in all the ponds and rivers. So
it's a nature preserve.
It's nature, and I studied conservation biology, was my major in college, so it's something that I'm passionate about. So the preserve seemed like a fitting name, but man, out there, one day I'm sitting there, literally, I'm building the course, I'm putting a sign into the ground with my mallet, banging it down, and all of a sudden it sounds like a meteor hits the pond right next to me, and I look up, and it's 2 bald eagles. So when bald eagles mate, they lock talons,
they start up super high,
thousands and thousands of feet up in the air, up in the thermals. They lock talons and just free fall when they're mating. And so I don't know if they didn't release their talons in time, but they just smacked the water, and it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. So all of a sudden, a huge splash, and then these bald eagles, they're so big, and now they're all wet. They can't just take off from the water. So they're literally swimming, doing a breaststroke to get out of the pond. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
And you had a video of one getting to the shore.
Yeah, and I quick ran to my bag, grabbed my camera, and started filming.
Once in a lifetime.
Yeah, it was wild. But, I mean, that's, people that come out to the preserve know, especially in the spring, because there's a creek that flows from the ponds to the river. So all the big fish, swim up the creek to go spawn and stuff. So when we were building the course, we'd be seeing, northern frickin' 2 feet long swimming in 2 feet of water just up these creeks and stuff. I mean, it's paradise. I love it up there.
That's amazing, man. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you today.
Is that it? Shoot.
We've been doing it for a minute now, over an hour, I think. But
yeah, my pleasure too.
To have you on first to describe that experience, the preserve, all of that stuff. It's amazing how it came about, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, because there was a lot of that stuff I didn't know, even the Prodigy stuff, being a team member, that I didn't know. So We appreciate that.
Yeah, it's definitely my pleasure. And honestly, like, you know, with how much stuff that's happening in disc golf now, with all the stuff that's happened, I mean, we could probably talk for another few hours. So maybe we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, we definitely will. Any shout outs or anything you want to say to the people?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to you because I've witnessed firsthand the last year plus how hard of a worker you are, and I'm glad to have you as a Prodigy teammate, and glad to have you involved with GK Pro and see how hard these guys are working too.
Top-notch fellas.
This is a good time to be in disc golf. When I started playing, I had to go buy a DVD and watch it over and over again. I had one DVD of the 2003 National Tour, and now people got some pretty cool content to watch every single day pretty much. So thank you guys all for what you're doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, Cale Leiviska. Okay. Yeah. Cale Leiviska, you're also own Airborne. You do course design. Where can people find information about that?
Yeah, so if you go to airbornepreserve.com, that's kind of like my all-in-one website. So we have our retail shop there as well. And there's also a link to my course design page, which is leiviskadiscgolf.com.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine. I'm realistic, especially, you know, with how far these kids are throwing these days, that I'm not going to be able to play pro for another 20 years. So, yeah, course design is something I'm definitely very passionate about, something I enjoy doing. And, yeah, hopefully we can do a bunch more fun championship courses over the next few years.
For sure. And when are we going to see you next out on the course?
Man, we're in the midst of a 3-week tour right now, so we'll be in Scottsdale today, playing Memorial this coming week, and then Waco for the second pro tour event of the year, and then I'm gonna head home and build the third course at the Preserve, get that kind of up and running, and then I'll be back on the pro tour by about midsummer.
All right, well, right on. We look forward to seeing you out there. Once again, thank you for coming. You guys, this has been the Go Throw Show, brought to you guys by Flight Factory. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.